Good afternoon and welcome back. You're watching the Midday Report and I'm your host, Claudia Czerwinska. Washington's decision to scale back its troop presence in Romania, including at the key American airbase, has prompted reassurance from Bucharest that around 1,000 U.S. soldiers will remain stationed there. Romania's defense minister commented on the matter, saying the move had been anticipated amid shifting priorities in Washington.
This reassessment of troops posture is part of a broader strategy announced at the beginning of the year by the United States. Pete Hegseth, the US Secretary of Defense, conveyed once again to European partners that now that the Europeans have consolidated their position on the eastern flank and in general in Europe and have agreed to arm themselves better, they will pay more attention to their own defenses. The United States will look more towards the Indo-Pacific. Approximately 1,000 American soldiers will remain in Romania, contributing to the deterrence of any threats, representing a guarantee of the US commitment to regional security.
Europe must be responsible for its own defense. This is the reaction from the European Commission regarding the alleged U.S. plan to cut the number of troops stationed on Europe's eastern flank in countries such as Romania. Let's go live to our EU correspondent Angela Skujins in Brussels. Good afternoon, Angela. So how could this news impact Europe's security, particularly in light of those drone incursions, one of which occurred in Romanian airspace last month?
Good afternoon, Claudia. So yes, this is certainly an interesting announcement over the last few months. Up to 23 European countries have reported drone incursions, including Poland and Romania. This prompted the European Commission to unveil its roadmap for defence readiness. Part of this is one flagship project titled the Eastern Surveillance Watch. The aim of this is to keep an eye on Europe's skies, particularly in the bloc's east, such as Romania, to ensure that those drone incursions do not come again, but if they do, they can be neutralised. So this news coming out of Washington of the withdrawal of those troops does throw question marks over the plan. TVP World did ask the European Commission at a press conference on Wednesday how it would impact Europe's security further.
Europe must be responsible for its own defence as part of a strong transatlantic security and fully aligned with NATO.
The spokesperson went on to add that the United States is an important partner in the NATO military alliance, as well as Europe's broader security architecture. But we have to wait and see what impact this will have, particularly in Romania, as well as the EU's defence roadmap, as well as if there are other announcements up ahead regarding the US in the EU.
Thank you very much. That was Angela Skujins reporting live from Brussels. And we continue. As winter approaches in Ukraine, Russia is once again targeting energy infrastructure, causing blackouts in Ukrainian households. But the Ukrainians, drawing on the experience of the previous years of the war, are not letting Russia break their spirit and are finding ways to live through the hardships of war.
Russia has been attacking Ukrainian energy infrastructure in the lead-up to the winter. That's how life looks like under constant attacks, while sheltering in the dark and cold.
Hello again.
Hello again. Is this the place?
It's the safest place in our building.
Yeah.
Because we have as a minimum 2 concrete walls.
Yaroslav and his family only have about 2 hours of power supply per day.
Everything in this building is under electricity, even water pump station, even heating systems, everything. That's why if you do not have electricity, you have nothing.
Thanks to a little bit of ingenuity, the family has a few extra hours of electricity.
I have only a battery, it's automobile battery. That's why I can connect my station to this battery, and using the inverter. Using the inverter, I can have light. For instance, light, internet connection, even TV.
It's better to use the stairs in such circumstances. One neighbor took the elevator when the power was still on, which was a poor choice, as he got stuck inside for hours.
Hello, how are you?
Thank you, Russia.
In Chernihiv, some days have as many as 15 air raid alarms. It's one of those areas of Ukraine where the energy infrastructure has been significantly crippled.
They want to scare us. They want to incite chaos, of course. But as they say, we'll survive with no power or electricity. The important thing is that the Russians are not here.
Closer to the front lines, it's even tougher. The area near Pokrovsk has lately seen some of the fiercest fighting. According to Ukrainian authorities, Russian troops outnumber Ukrainians 8-1 in this sector of the front line.
That is where the largest number of the occupiers' strike forces are and where significant assault activity is focused. Fighting is also ongoing in the city, as this is their main target, Pokrovsk itself. And every victory of our forces in this area is a victory for all of Ukraine, for the entire defense of our state.
But Ukraine has had some successes in this difficult time. A recent strike on the dam in Russia's Belgorod region reportedly hindered Moscow's onslaught in the area, as the resulting flood swept through Russian trenches. According to Russian authorities, on Wednesday Ukrainians sent drones towards Moscow for the third consecutive night and targeted several other Russian regions, disrupting air traffic throughout the country and threatening an industrial plant in Russia's south. As the two-way attacks continue, efforts to end the war so far seem to be going nowhere.
Vladimir Putin has shown time and time again that this conflict goes to the heart of his rule, goes to the heart of Russian imperialism, Russian revanchism. And so if you look at it through that lens, then of course he has no desire to come to the table and end things. Time is on his side.
That's bad news for Ukrainian civilians, who are bracing for yet another dark and cold winter.
Will Donald Trump spur China into helping bring the war in Ukraine to an end? That's the big question everyone is asking ahead of the meeting between the leaders of both superpowers. This comes as Trump's Asia trip culminates at South Korea's summit of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Organization, known as APEC.
All is set for the meeting between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping in South Korea. The US president will be on a quest to change Beijing's policy towards Russia.
Love China to help us out with Russia. We put very big sanctions on Russia. I think those sanctions are going to be, they're very biting, they're very strong. But I'd like to see China help us out.
And this policy hasn't been overly hostile towards the Kremlin, according to the Ukrainians.
We see that China provided machines for manufacturing weapons to the Russian Federation. We see that they help circumvent sanctions. We see that there are Chinese mercenaries who fought against Ukrainian soldiers.
The tensions between the US and China are rising after Trump slapped tariffs on Beijing and amid the long-standing Chinese threat to Washington's important trading partner, Taiwan. But the expectations ahead of the meeting are running high nonetheless.
If President Trump manages to talk or make decisions to find an understanding with China to reduce their imports of Russian energy, I think it will help us all.
Experts, however, remain skeptical about the positive outcome of this summit.
As with Donald Trump, we have plenty of experience knowing that he might be declaring something, but the reality might turn out quite differently.
But Trump might be dancing to his own beat on the Asian trip. He signed an agreement on rare earths and clinched an arms deal with Japan.
I'm delighted to report that I've just approved the first batch of missiles. You saw a couple of them coming down with me. I hugged them. We need them. They're the best in the world. Nobody has them like we have them. They all want our missiles. That's the problem. Everybody wants them. But it's the first batch of missiles to be delivered to the Japanese self-defense forces for Japan's F-35s. And they're coming this week, so they're ahead of schedule.
Just hours before he arrived in South Korea, Pyongyang test-fired sea-to-surface cruise missiles west of the Korean peninsula. Though initially it had been rumored Trump would meet with his North Korean counterpart Kim Jong-un, the plan fell through.
I know Kim Jong-un very well. We get along very well. We really weren't able to work out timing.
Now all eyes are on the Thursday meeting between Trump and Xi.
The next ruling coalition in the Czech Republic's parliament is taking shape as three parties announced today that they will sign a cooperation agreement on November 3rd. Prospective Prime Minister Andrej Babiš's ANO party, which won the recent parliamentary elections, is joining forces with two far-right parties already facing controversy. We go live to our correspondent in Prague, Andrew Sweeney. Good afternoon, Andrew. So what can you tell us about the makeup of this new ruling coalition?
Well, Andrej Babiš's ANO party is populist to its core, and its previous government actually allied with the communists. But what's really interesting is it's now joined forces with two far-right parties, with Freedom and Direct Democracy, your classic anti-EU, anti-NATO, pro-Russia movement, and Motoriste, a completely new movement that entered parliament this year, focused mainly on anti-green measures. Now, it's important to note that while we have the new coalition, it doesn't mean we have a new government. That will take some time. And the ministers need to be nominated and sent to the Czech president, Petr Pavel, for approval. The nomination of one from Motoriste, Filip Turek, has already been very controversial because of his very controversial social media posts. And in terms of policies, well, certainly there'll be a reduction of aid to Ukraine. That was a big issue here. And a reduction in defense spending. Just this morning, Alena Skyllerova, who was the finance minister in Babiš's previous cabinet, said that defense spending would probably not reach more than 2%, and that could even be lower. Certainly, while we know of the players, roles are still to be decided, and there's still a lot to debate in Czech politics. Back to you.
Thank you so much. That was Andrew Sweeney reporting live from Prague. And it's a decision day in the Netherlands, a vote that could once again reshape Europe's political landscape. Dutch voters are heading to the polls after a turbulent campaign dominated by the question of migration and the future of populist leader Geert Wilders. With the four main parties neck and neck and no clear coalition in sight, the outcome may hinge less on who wins than on who's willing to work with whom.
In the Netherlands, the campaign marathon ends where it began, with the question of migration. On the eve of general election, Dutch party leaders clashed in a fiery televised debate, wrapping up a campaign defined by sharp divides, tight polls and an electorate more undecided than ever.
The Netherlands is buckling under the weight of migration. We've welcomed 3 million migrants over the past 10 years. We can't do that. And that's essentially the question facing the people at home tomorrow.
Wilders' rival, Rob Jetten of the liberal D66, argued that the Dutch economy can't run without foreign talent, and that the real challenge lies in balance, not bans.
Most Dutch people understand that the economy needs talent from abroad. They want to properly accommodate people fleeing war and violence, but also be strict with the bad apples who ruin the system. And tomorrow we can choose.
Meanwhile, Frans Timmermans, leading the Green Left Labour alliance, turned the discussion personal, accusing Wilders of dividing society rather than leading it.
With Wilders, we've seen that society has stalled, that hate is dominant. He has created hate factories that have paralyzed Dutch society.
Out on the streets of The Hague, voters voiced their own concerns, from climate to housing and healthcare, in what many described as the most unpredictable election in years.
I think climate is very important, housing, but also how we treat the environment.
I think safety is very important. I think healthcare is very important. What the Netherlands looks like, how we defend ourselves, and housing. I think housing is also very important.
Last year I voted for a different party than usual because I wanted to see some change in Dutch politics.
With polls still razor thin, analysts say it may matter more who comes second than who wins. Four parties are competing to anchor the next coalition: Wilders' PVV, Timmermans' Green Left Labour, Jetten's D66 and the Christian Democrats.
Currently, Geert Wilders' PVV party is still projected to become the largest, but he's losing compared to 2 years ago. And the three other main parties have ruled out working together with him, owing to his previous engagement with governments, because it's not the first government that Wilders is involved in.
More than a third of voters remain undecided, reflecting fatigue after years of political gridlock. And as polling stations open at dawn on Wednesday, the Netherlands faces a familiar question: change or continuity, populism or pragmatism. By the time the last ballot box closes at 9 p.m, the country may not yet know its next prime minister, but it will know whether the Dutch pendulum has swung once again.
And so this would be all for now. However, for more latest news, please join Ashim Kumar at 4 p.m. CET. That's all from me for now. I'm Klaudia Czerwińska. Until next time.